for a lot of insurance companies, it starts with, the way they design products. They not start with the customer. They start with, my actuaries came up with this really cool new product, and now we are pushing it into the market with our agents. Or everybody has a chatbot, need a chatbot too, and because we are so cool, we also want to be on Alexa. And then they create these plugins that you can now ask Alexa how much premium is due for your life insurance, or whatever it is, instead of really looking what is it that customers are looking for, what are really the pain points. I'm Theresa Blissing, and this is the future of insurance.
This episode is brought to you by Medallia, the market leader in customer and employee experience. Their award-winning SaaS platform, Medallia Experience Cloud, makes all your other applications customer and employee aware. Medallia uses proprietary AI and machine learning to reveal predictive insights that drive powerful business actions and outcomes. Leading insurers like Prudential and Zurich use Medallia to reduce churn, turn detractors into promoters, create in-the-moment cross-sell and upsell opportunities, and drive revenue-impacting business decisions. Learn more at medallia.com.
For joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Awesome to be on your podcast for a change.
I'm excited. This is your first side on the other side, first time on the other side of the mic. So no pressure on either of us. But sure
Yeah.
I'm really curious, which city is that behind you?
That is Bangkok.
Okay.
As you know, Bangkok is also the place where Michael and I started the Asia InsurTech Podcast. So yeah.
So give
Good
us
view.
a quick sense of the intention of that, because people who are seeing and hearing you will understand you're not Asian, you're not in Bangkok right now due to lockdown, you're in Germany, but why the focus on Asia, and what do you do with your work?
Well, I moved to Bangkok in 2015, and coming originally from the insurance industry, then switched to managing consultant. And something I was really fascinated about was, how technology is reshaping insurance. In 2015, when I moved, I also did an academic research study on the adoption of big data in the Southeast Asian insurance market, because really I was working for one of the biggest insurance groups in the world, and 2015 was the time where the whole big data hype was really at its peak, and I was like, well, there's all this hype about big data, but if I look into the company I work for, there's not big data. There's maybe small data. There's, a reality that insurers are not even able to access their own data in the system. And this is really what got me curious, what got me into this space. And in 2019, then I started with the podcast host Michael Wade's, the Asia InsurTech Podcast, specifically because InsurTech was at that time already really popular in the US and in Europe. I'm originally from Germany, by the way. But there was, very little coverage on what is happening actually in Asia. In Asia needs its own solution, especially if you're looking at emerging Asia, right? If you have a country like Indonesia with an insurance penetration of maybe 2% and geography that you have 9,000 islands where you cannot really tackle this with massive agent distribution because you have all these like remote parts, then a country like Thailand, like Malaysia, like the Philippines, all very different, all different religions, different also digital ecosystems that have developed in these countries, right? So you cannot simply take something that works in the US, that works in Europe, in a mature, saturated market, and bring it into this kind of environment. And that was really the idea behind it, to, give a stage for what does insurance innovation in Asia look like, right? Yeah. But also what can the rest of the world learn from it? And I tell you why that is. Asia had the advantage of leapfrogging certain developments, right? So in the US and in Europe, a lot of the hurdles when it comes to digital transformation is the legacy issue, right? Having the legacy systems, but also the mindset and culture and the behavior that has been learned over decades. If you, on the other hand, have a country like Cambodia, which has recently started really developing their insurance industry, where you have you know you start basically from a green field. You don't have these legacy issues. You don't have learned behavior. I talked to a broker the other day from Cambodia, and he said, like, our entire workforce is just working with tablets and submitting everything digitally,
Yeah.
right? Where you have in other countries issues. So yeah, long story short, that's my background. That's where I'm coming from, looking at how technology reshaped Asia and what the West can also learn from that.
Yeah. So you saw an underserved or undercovered market that actually had a lot of reasons to get a focus. And you mentioned legacy technology. The difference in it's we're not just talking about what the carriers had. We're talking about the entire economy, the consumers too, because it's mobile first for a lot of these folks.
Yes.
Whereas in the US or in Europe, you're dealing with a desktop or laptop computer paradigm and then a shift to mobile. So the demand's more spread out and people aren't living through their mobile as much as they are in Asia or Africa or in other markets that started
Yes.
first with a smartphone.
Yeah, a really good point you're making here. If you ask someone in India how they access the internet, they will tell you through their phone, because that is
Yeah.
the first time they had access to the internet. Whereas, as you rightly pointed out, a different mindset there in the US and in Europe. But this is going to change, right? With the younger generations coming up, it will very much look similar to Asia in a few years, I believe.
So this is why I think you're an interesting guest to have on, because in historically we would say, well, Asia's developing, and then you've got the developed markets, the European and North American insurance markets, for example, or Bermuda when we're talking about reinsurance or whatever. And there's China, which is like special case, massive, and poured a lot of funds into it to create some real powerhouses globally. Um, but actually, I think when we talk about the shift in the way people will consume and the kinds of products they need and how they want to interact with those products, it's the so-called developing countries that are the developed ones, because the next generation of tools exist in your when you mentioned ecosystems, like ecosystems exist in Asia and have not been able to take off in the US as yet. I think you're probably right. It's a generational thing. We need to move past the sort of legacy debt that people like myself, my generation and older, live with
Yeah.
versus like my kid, where he's totally comfortable with mobile and and
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
things digitally. So I think the role is about to reverse in terms of who's developed and who's developing.
Yeah, good point. But something that I also find interesting is we are seeing now a lot of US tech companies coming into Asia and build something outside their home market. So Amazon, for example, has launched last year in India, selling car insurance with an InsurTech Akko Insurance, also founded in India. So they are now selling insurance products on the Amazon platform, integrated into their Prime offering. So if you buy insurance, you will get a Prime membership, on top for a year. Quite interesting. And now also WhatsApp is looking into offering insurance. They have already got the license to have an e-wallet. So WhatsApp in India is now also available mobile wallet. And the next step they are currently developing with the number of insurers is that they will also start offering insurance in India. And that is quite interesting, right? American companies coming to India to start offering insurance there, but not in their home country.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of partnerships and connections and moves that when I wrote my first book, these are what people are like, well, watch. Caribou Honig from ITC was like, watch the combination of the tech providers and the insurance
Yes.
solutions. And that's when you have a real threat. And what you're saying is that's already happening in Asia.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
keep
it is.
watching. But
And also, I mean, in the US, you have Uber, I think you have Lyft, right?
yeah.
Also playing a little bit in the insurance game, but what is happening in Asia is again a whole different story. We have Grab, who is operating across Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
They have 160 million downloads of their app. I mean, these are numbers, they're just crazy, right? And that is excluding China, right? So that is Southeast Asia. And they have now integrated insurance policies into their app, but designed for this like low income bracket, right? So
Yeah.
for the drivers who are coming from low income groups, who often have like no financial literacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they can purchase critical illness coverages via their Grab ride hailing drivers app, and also in a really smart way. So they don't have to pay an upfront monthly or annual premium, but they can decide that maybe 5 cents from every ride is deducted and then paid into a critical illness coverage. And the app would tell them, okay, if you complete 10 drives today, you have a critical illness coverage of that amount.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic, right? Because that fits into the circumstances of these low income people who are now for the first time able to buy financial products.
Yeah.
And in addition, Grab has now also secured a digital banking license together with the telco operator in Singapore. It was just confirmed in December, and they are planning to launch, I think, within a year. So this ride-hailing company is now morphing into a fintech and insurtech company. Super interesting.
Yeah, and you'd use the term when we talked before, like a super app. So to think of it
Yes.
as ride hailing that adds other things on maybe is too simplistic. It's more an app that's starting to encompass many different aspects of your life, which takes a ton of forethought. It's a really interesting, different view on it. But yeah, who would think like why would a ride hailing provider suddenly start to move into these other spaces, but they recognized flexibility, knowledge of what the consumer's doing, having a point of interaction, having a transaction basis already. It's really fascinating.
Yes, and I think for them it is also a good way to have an additional revenue model, because the ride hailing is still losing and burning a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But if you manage to leverage on that user base you have, right? Millions of monthly active users, if you only have maybe 5%, you can convert into buying insurance and have this like insurance commission, what these companies then get, right? That is also probably the reason why WhatsApp is looking into that.
Hmm.
WhatsApp has this massive user base, but basically no revenue model. Just selling the data they have to their parent Facebook. So I think these platform, these ecosystems like Grab, but also like WhatsApp, they see that they can commercialize on their users, that they have this massive user base. They know what their users want. They have these analytics on them, and they can now offer them the right product at the right time and have an additional revenue stream, or in the case of WhatsApp, maybe a more prominent revenue stream to their business model.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to really leverage on that. The question that remains is how many can you actually convert of your active users? But if they just manage to convert 5% of their monthly active users, I think they have a really solid case here.
Yeah. I mean, it would be more customers than most insurance companies have. when you're talking
Yeah.
about the scale at play. I mean, WhatsApp is over a billion. I mean, globally, but in Southeast Asia, I mean, I'm sure it's still hundreds of millions if you add it up. It's so pervasive. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
Teresa, I'm curious what this means for the existing providers then. So when you see this stuff going on, is that a threat? Is it something to laugh off? Is it something to mimic? Is it something to partner with? What's the lesson for the existing industry that isn't a Grab or a WhatsApp or whoever else that has a totally different engagement?
Well, I think what these new companies are really good at is building products for the digital economy, and that is something that lots of incumbents are not really good at. Right, the products they are offering are still basically the same products like in the past 50, if not 100 years, right? But really offering products that fit into the lifestyle that people have today. And just think about how much all of our lives have changed, just through the smartphone. I think we can all agree on that. Without a smartphone today, we would be lost, right? And a lot of the behavior has changed with that. And new risks have emerged. Work looks different today. So many things. And insurers are really struggling, the incumbents, I mean, to build products and services that fit into this new way of life, this digital economy. And that's, I think, where these new players are really good at, right? They understand what does life today look like, and what are the products that people want, that people need, right?
Mm,
And also, what kind of service should we offer? Something I always hear is the customer 360 view and the omni-channel approach.
yeah.
um, these are all terms we have heard so many times, but they are not really thought through, and they are not really seamless, right? That you can switch from one channel to the next, that the correspondence is there, that you really give the customer the choice to choose their way of communication. And that could be WhatsApp, that can be Facebook Messenger, that can be a Line Messenger app, that can be meeting with an agent, that can be a call, but so many different ways. But that all needs to be seamless. And I think that is where um, the incumbents are really struggling to provide this service, and in addition to provide these innovative products that fit into our daily life now.
I I appreciate that you brought this up because I think there are a lot of buzzwords and maybe well-intentioned actions that are really just kind of paying lip service to things and not like, oh, we have an innovation team, or we had someone came in and did some design thinking work for us, and so we're thinking about the customer first, but it doesn't really change what they're doing or how they're doing things. Do
Yeah.
you think it's possible to do that? Like, why are we not able to move through that hurdle and make it real?
I think I think for a lot of insurance companies, it starts with, the way they design products. They not start with the customer. They start with, oh, my actuaries came up with this really cool new product, and now we are pushing it into the market with our agents. Or everybody has a chatbot, need a chatbot too, and because we are so cool, we also want to be on Alexa.
Mm,
And then they create these plugins that you can now ask Alexa how much premium is due for your life insurance, or whatever it is.
yeah,
But that
I'm never
doesn't
doing
really exactly.
that.
You would never do that. Instead of really looking, what is it that customers are looking for? What are really the pain points? What do they expect from their insurance company?
Yeah,
Instead of just coming up with internal solutions and pushing it into the market, regardless of if the market wants it or not.
yeah.
I think that is the first big mistake a lot of companies are making.
Do you think a company like Grab or WhatsApp or someone else who's more in the flow of the customer's life is are they uniquely positioned to answer that? Like going back to the point you said before, is what does
Yeah.
life look like today for the customer? How is an insurance company supposed to be able to answer that? Because it's such an infrequent interaction.
I think it really comes down to the mindset, right? So if you're starting a startup today, especially a consumer facing one, with ride hailing and all the competition. If we take the example of Grab, right, you really have to understand your customer and you really need to add value to a customer's life. Otherwise, you would not make it.
Yeah.
And I think that is what makes the difference, that these companies, these new companies, they think differently. They really have the struggle of, we need to build something that truly adds value to our customers. Otherwise, we cannot make it. And I think that is what needs to change first, the mindset and culture within insurance organizations, to truly take a view from the customer and see, okay, what does the customer need? How can I add value? Um,
Yeah.
I think that is really the one of the biggest problems.
Yeah. It's an incredibly hard thing to change. I totally agree with you.
Yes.
Um,
Technology is easy. Changing people
it's
is the
really,
hard part.
yeah. Um, is that where, like when you talk about what Amazon's doing, is that where partnership is the path? So should the existing companies look to the Grabs and Amazons and whoever else of the world to be their path into making that shift and accessing a different way?
Yeah, interesting point. Adds a little bit to what I said earlier, that insurance companies are just not really good to be in customers' lives and understand what a customer really needs. And these partnerships can really be the gateway to these customers, and lead to maybe a scenario where the insurance incumbents are just a product provider. So they are underwriting the risk, right? Maybe you still have an agency network, but then have these platforms, these ecosystems really engage with the customer, build the relationship there, also have the brand out there, and then just have the insurer in the back providing the product.
Mm.
That is certainly a scenario that could be possible. I think especially if you're looking at digital distribution or alternative digital distribution.
Yeah.
That is really something, I think it's difficult for an insurance company to build that. And really the question is, should they build that? If
Yeah.
there are other players out there, they are stronger in that field, why not partner with them? That, is definitely a great solution.
So I want to build on that. Is does that relegate the insurers then to a space where, we started with big data, like data's out there, there are fantastic tools to analyze it that are getting better and better. Capital is out there. There's, more and more access to capital and new creative ways to put it into action. If I'm a tech company, do I need to have a carrier to partner with, or do I, make use of the data tools and make use of the capital that's out there and just do it myself? Like why partner if you're on the tech side?
Um, Good question, but as you know, building an insurance and licensed insurance company is very capital intensive. It's also um, not an easy task if you look at all the regulations
Yeah.
that come with it, right? That is something that actually the tech players are not that great with. And we have also seen, I believe in the US, Oscar, when they first rolled out in a lot of states, they weren't compliant with the regulation and had to, you know, um, uh, go out of these kind of states again. So I think that is something that tech players often underestimate how difficult insurance is. And
Yeah.
that, frankly, is the reason why insurance hasn't really been disrupted yet. Um, so I believe if they find an agile enough insurance incumbent to partner with, that's a great partnership. Often the problem is that you have different languages here. The tech giants or tech companies, they speak a complete different language than an insurance incumbent, and also like timeframes are completely different. For most insurance companies, it's an achievement if they launch a new product within a year.
Yeah.
Whereas in the tech space, it is days or maybe weeks, right?
Yeah.
And we have actually seen companies that started. Um, if you look at VFox, for example, it's an insurtech from Germany. They first started as a broker platform,
Yeah.
but and they realized they can only be fully digital if they have a great partner. And because they couldn't find any good partners on the German market, a lot of companies were interested, but they couldn't just deliver a truly digital experience. So that's when they realized, okay, we can take all this work to work with an incumbent to get them finally to the point where they understand what digital really means, or we take this energy and build our own insurer. And that's what they did. They built an insurer called One. Fairly similar situation in India. Policy Fox also started as an online aggregator. The founder, Varun, he sold that then and also started a new company, which is ACO Insurance, and now partnering with Amazon
Yeah.
exactly for this reason, because the incumbents are so hard to change.
Oh, that's interesting. So, all right. So you've given some hope that both sides get to exist. So I appreciate that. Um, given where Asia is on innovation and disruption, which I think is ahead of the again the so-called developed nations or developed markets, what what's brewing in Asia that you could see being one of the next big things? So we've talked about the mobile capabilities, we've talked about the ecosystem approach. What are some other things that are maybe on the forefront of development in Asia that you could see being those things that start to permeate? Maybe it's over a decade or more, but start to eke out through the rest of the world.
Um, well, what I'm seeing at the moment is this partnership between an ecosystem, an insurance incumbent, but then also a software as a service provider to connect the two of them, right? Um, because if you are looking at an example that I mentioned earlier with Grab, like all these micro insurance critical illness products, they sold I think in the first few months, 90 million policies.
Wow.
You can only sell that many policies, and those are all micro policies, so not a lot of margin. You can only do that if you have a completely automated front and back end, right? Otherwise, you cannot manage these numbers. And that is where now these SaaS providers come in. In case of Grab, they are partnering with Chang'an Tech, which is a tech arm of Chang'an Insurance, which is the online insurer in China, started in 2015. And they have their own tech arm. Ping An is doing something similar with One Connect. In Japan, we have an insurtech that is actually a licensed insurance company, and also have now their own technology arm selling their technology to insurance incumbents.
Mm.
And I think that is something that I could also see in other parts of the world, that you have the insurance incumbent being good at what they do, right? Underwriting risks, keeping the risks in their books, doing the underwriting, but then having this connection. We are a tech provider to an ecosystem in order to fully automate these processes from really front to back. and now being able to offer policies also to, probably completely different margins compared to what you would offer via an agency network. And I think that is opening the doors also to new covers that are bite size, and ensuring a specific need. For example, there's a company in Hong Kong. They have now a golfing insurance, and they mapped out the golf courses in Hong Kong. And if you buy this coverage, you have to share your geolocation data, and only if the app picks up that you're on the golf course, your cover will start.
What is it ensuring? That you have a bad round?
Yeah, it's ensuring if you have accidents on the golf course. They have done the same for hiking, where they also mapped out all the hiking trails, right?
That
And that
makes
is like completely automated, and very affordable premiums, because there's very, very little margin that they need to give
yeah.
here. And yeah, I think that is really the potential of these new partnerships between ecosystems, an insurance incumbent, and a technology provider that provides the technology to be that flexible and completely digital.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because that's a debate. I mean, we could spend hours talking about this, but the debate over whether that's enough of a market, and can you charge enough for those policies to make it worthwhile? But when you
Yeah.
scale the market and the interactions up to the kind of scale that some of these companies are playing at, even if it's only cents, it still adds up. And if you built yourself flexibly, it's irrelevant because you have that margin regardless because you built the scale into it.
Yeah, I know the conversation, and I get it. It's just, again, it comes to how our lives have changed, right? I think the newer generation hardly buys any more cars anymore, right? Because they just have this on demand. If I need a car, I call an Uber, I call a Lyft. If I really need a car for a long weekend, I just rent one. um, it's, I think you have to take this into account, that all our lives have changed to this on demand lifestyle that we are all living. And if insurance companies are happy with that or not, I think products need to match this lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong point. Theresa, we could end there, but I want to give you the chance if there's some parting wisdom, some future thoughts that you have that you want to share before we go.
No, I mean, I think it is a super exciting time in insurance. I've been in insurance since I started in 2004. So it has been a couple of years, and I believe we are living in a very exciting time. And can encourage everyone to embrace it, and looking forward to the future of insurance.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending some time. I'm sorry that the video didn't stay up long enough, but we got some video in there. Theresa, thank you for, I mean, honestly, sharing a perspective from the ground in Asia with things that I think those of us in the US, we may think, oh, well, I'd never buy that, or that'd never be interesting. I even said it about, checking my life insurance premium on my Alexa, although I probably will never do that.
Yeah.
But we do need to pay attention, because if it's not the next generation and maybe the generation after that, I think these things will be very common in the day-to-day of how we live. So that perspective is really valuable.
Yeah, and I really think that our lifestyle is changing so much. A topic I also find interesting is the whole gig economy, and ensuring the gig economy. That's also a completely new chapter, right? Where you have a new way of work. And now with with COVID, and people getting used to working remote, I think that will even accelerate.
Yeah.
And then people have gig jobs. They can do it from wherever they want, and there needs to be insurance solutions for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree.
And they need to be more flexible than the current employee benefit solution we have.
Yeah. There's a lot that can change. We'll see what comes out of last year and this year, and maybe one more and then we'll see who's woken up and what new offerings there are. But I think no question on the consumption side, the demand is completely different, or
Yeah.
it's shifting right now, right before our eyes. So yeah, it's a very interesting time. Well,
Agree.
Theresa, thank you for joining me for the show. It's really interesting.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
You too.
Huge thanks to Theresa for joining me for the show to talk about the perspective that she sees in Asia and thinking about how we can bring those learnings, those insights, the changes that are going on there into our context, regardless of what geography you're in. So again, thank you to Theresa for coming on and sharing some thoughts and observations of what she's seeing in the Asian market. And a thank you to Medallia. I have to mention them again for sponsoring the show. This would not be possible without them. So a huge thank you for their support. And also, have you read The Future of Insurance from Disruption Evolution? I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, you should go pick it up. If this stuff that we're talking about in this show interests you and excites you and gets you thinking about what sort of change can you bring into your world, you should pick up the book. First one is all about legacy carriers who are overcoming challenges they face in the face of all the disruption that's going on in the industry. The second one, which is released in June of 2021, is the other side of that disruption coin, the startup. So it's the genesis story. It's the trials, the tribulations, the whole journey of 9 different startups as they try to help move the industry forward. So really interesting insights told very honestly from the founders. I was really lucky to get time with people at the legacy carriers and the founders and their teams at all these startup carriers. Super interesting stuff. future-of-insurance.com for more info, or you can just head to Amazon, search for The Future of Insurance, and you can pick it up there in paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and Audible. You should also make sure you are subscribed to this show so you don't miss an episode. And if you're watching it on YouTube, don't just subscribe, hit that bell so you get the notifications so you never miss a beat. As soon as the episode comes out, you will know. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Google Podcasts, whatever they call it today, whatever format and source you want to get it from, it is right there. So thank you to you for sticking through, and a preemptive thank you for subscribing if you haven't yet, because I know you're going to go and do that and help spread the word about the show. And if you like the music that's playing in this show, in the intro and right now, you can go to the show notes and check out more from Upbeat Music, who has provided the show's music, but hopefully it's been enjoyable to listen to. All right, with that, I will say goodbye, and I will see you for another episode soon.